Atamarie, no mai haramai ki tēnei wāhanga o Oaha Live. Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa ko tai mai nei I tēnei rā. Kia ora, I'm Sandra Julian. I am the founder of Oaha, a business event agency and BIA approved professional conference organizer. Welcome along to this week's edition of Oaha Live. This is where I interview the many talented people that make up the business events industry here in Aotearoa. And whilst we've had many people on the show for the last, almost coming up 9 months. So at the end of this month, we will have been producing Oaha Live for 9 months, which is crazy really to think about. But this week, I thought I would take a wee deviation from our usual interviews of the amazing people that do make up the business events industry here in Aotearoa and do a bit of a solo edition. Because as we move into this new phase, I'm going to say post-COVID or in COVID recovery period, we get the opportunity to reimagine what business events look like. So we've been doing a lot of virtual events up until recently when we've returned to in-person events. Earlier on this year, we had an in-person event planned, and we had to very quickly pivot that into a virtual event, some kind of hybrid model actually, because we had that wee blip in the alert levels, which took us up to level 2, which meant that we couldn't hold the event that we were planning. So I thought today would be maybe an opportune time to really chat with you about the what it takes, or maybe a framework to look at when designing a hybrid event experience. And then we will return to the normal interview series, not next week, but the week after, with our next guest. So I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go, that works. And let's do this. It's about a 30-minute presentation. I did this yesterday for a group of people and it went down really well. So I thought, look, why not put this on and do this as one of the Oaha Live series as a solo episode, which is kind of new, kind of daunting that you're just listening to me today. But let's do this, shall we? So a hybrid event experience, what is this? Well, I suppose just like many of you in the business events industry, there was nothing like losing 100% of my business in less than a week to get me out of my comfort zone and innovating. And maybe I should take you back to where my curiosity started. So maybe the end of 2019, early 2020, I'd started to dabble in the online business world. And I was curious around how I might take my 20 odd years of experience creating memorable events and how I could transition that into an online space. But little did I know that for the next 12 months, online events were going to be the only thing that I was going to be doing if I was going to continue to run a business event agency. But here we are, and I'm still here. Not only have, in the last 12 months, have I researched the shit out of how does an online event, how does a virtual event take place, how does it create connection around its attendees, what are the aspects and the nuances about a virtual event that we really need to pay attention to in designing the experience. But I have also hosted my own virtual summit, which was really an interesting exercise to do, really in my own mindset more than anything. And then I've helped some clients who were brave enough to switch their event from an in-person event to a virtual event, and then some form of hybrid event. And I'm continuing to have conversations with clients around what does a hybrid model look like moving forward? And should we really consider that for our events as we evolve them into what they could possibly be? And I tell you what, those conversations really excite me because it means that we can continue to innovate what we're doing for our clients. So today I want to dive into designing a hybrid event experiencing, acknowledging that there is no one size fits all, and that the solution that you choose will depend on the outcome that you're looking to achieve from your event. So I like to reverse engineer everything. So I always start with the end in mind. So I start with outcome, challenge, and solution. Rather than what might seem a bit more streamlined, what's the challenge, what's the solution in order to get your outcome? So by the end of this episode today, you'll have a framework and a strategy to be able to design your own hybrid event experience, whatever that might look like. Here in Aotearoa, I think we are really fortunate that we are actually able to return to in-person events. Many people that I know and many colleagues who are overseas, they still only have virtual events as their option, or as a real viable option anyway. So I think we should count our lucky stars that we have the opportunity to explore what this hybrid event world might look like, and pave new ways for event experiences. But the benefit that I think COVID has given us is that 12 months ago, we didn't see a lot of people really taking up technology in their events, not in the way that we do now. So I think COVID it's moved us ahead 5 years. So I think we've moved 5 years in our ability to utilize technology in a business event experience, and the technology that's available to us has changed dramatically. So for a 12-month period, I think we've taken a quantum leap of 5 years. So that gives people's capability, it gives us the opportunity to do more things that involves technology with our events. So let's take a look at what a hybrid event actually is. So pre-COVID, it was probably fair to say that 99% of our events were down in the in-person event arena. Then we moved overnight to the virtual event experiences at the other end of the spectrum. And then in this middle part, we have the opportunity to really reimagine how we deliver events using a hybrid event model. So when I was thinking about, well, what is the real definition of a hybrid event? What does the dictionary say that a hybrid event is? So this is what I found when I looked it up. A hybrid event is a mix of live and virtual events. You take your in-person event, complete with audience, content, and everything else, and you add a virtual component so that your audience can participate from anywhere. And I'm not sure that I really wholeheartedly agree with that definition. I kind of think that hybrid is a whole spectrum, and it can be whatever you want it to be as long as it has two components, an in-person component and a virtual component. So this hybrid experience in the middle, I think there's a lot for us to play with. So I want to give you a couple of examples in a minute, but I think the definition that says take your in-person event and add a virtual element That might seem easy because you might be thinking, oh, I can just put a camera in the room and stream my sessions of my live event out to a virtual platform. And yes, you could do that, and that could be one form of a hybrid event. But I really want to give you a couple of other examples for you to think about and see how the spectrum really works. So example one, this is, if you imagine pods. So if you had pods of in-person events, if I could find my words. So imagine that you had different pods of in-person events taking place in different cities, different locations, could even be different countries. So you could actually have a global event with pods of people located in different cities around the globe. Each city is connected with a live stream. So the presenters are live streamed into the different pods, but the speakers could also be in the different pods. So not all speakers are in one pod. You could have a speaker in each pod. The speaker is then streamed out to the other locations. All of the delegates are in person, but they are in person and connected by a centralized hub. And we'll get to that in a minute. I'll explain what I think a hub should be and a dashboard should be. Example number two that I want to give you is, imagine your speaker is in person. So you've created a studio with a real live stage. All of the speakers are attending in person and presenting from stage to the camera, and then being beamed out to the live stream to the delegates who are all watching virtually or participating in the event virtually. This again is another hybrid experience, probably more closer to the in-person, it's closer to the virtual spectrum, where example one I gave you was probably closer to the in-person spectrum in that hybrid section of where we're playing at. But if you do have delegates that are both in-person and virtual, you have to give both groups or both cohorts of delegates equal weight in your planning process. So you have to think about their experience equally. I think it's really hard, it's really easy to give all of your in-person, your majority of your thinking, and then just, put the camera in the room and then beam it out to the virtual events and not give them another thought. But I truly believe if you're providing an experience, then both cohorts need to be given equal weighting in your planning. So your mind is probably now going, okay, well, how do I host a virtual event and what's involved? And my favorite word that I use all of the time in in-person events as well, but it has become even more prevalent now, is it depends. So it depends because of the outcome that you are wanting to achieve with your event. So what components will be in person and what components will be virtual? So to be able to answer this question, you really need to articulate your desired outcome, the challenges that you face, and then the solution that you're going to provide. So I always start with the outcome. So I reverse engineer everything. So I always start with the end in mind. What do you want to achieve with your event? So some questions that you might ask yourself at this outcome phase of your planning, which is where you're going to start. So you might explore some questions like, what do you want to achieve with your event? So why are you hosting your event? Who do you want to attend your event? And when you get to the end of your event and it's all been said and done and delivered, what what do you want to have achieved? I think these are the questions that you need to ask yourself before, taking the next step. So if you head into like planning your event without asking yourself these questions and really articulating the answer, it's like driving your car without a map. You know where you're going, but you're not sure how you're going to get there. You've got no idea. And when you're driving long distances, you want to take the shortest possible route. Probably when you're driving short distances too, you want to take the shortest possible route to where you want to get to. So when you're planning out your event, you really want to start with navigating the route that you're going to take to get to your destination. And it starts with these questions. So I'm going to take a wild guess here and say the last time that you held your in-person event or your annual conference, it kind of went something like this. You finished your annual conference, the evaluations came in, the feedback was great, the speakers were sending in their emails, you had a fabulous time, it went to plan, it was a great event. Of course, you've got things that you can improve on, but then immediately you start thinking about, okay, so next year, what's the theme of our event for next year? What are the hot topics that we want to get speakers to speak about? Oh, and who can we get to speak? Like, who should we really put on our radar and get along to our next event? And then you start thinking about, okay, where we're going to hold it? What venue? Oh, let's go look for a venue. Now we start putting together our budget, and then before you know it, you're full on in planning phase. But you still haven't answered those questions. Why do you hold an annual event? Who is your audience? What do they really want, and how can you serve them? So really dive into those questions and what you want to achieve at the end of your event. Planning a hybrid event will become hard really quickly if you don't articulate really articulate the answers to those questions about why do you do your event. So get some real clarity around the why and the who, because when you get clarity around that, your ability to plan your hybrid event for those particular reasons, it will become really clear. So get clarity and understand deeply the purpose of your event. And the purpose of your event is not just because it's a list on my member benefits that we deliver an annual conference. That's not a reason why you should host your annual event. So dig deeper. Why are we doing this event? Then once you are clear on the outcomes that you want to achieve, now it's time to consider the challenges that you might face as you want to work towards achieving your desired outcome. So brainstorm all of the challenges that might be ahead of you. So you might have limitations on how many people can attend. Your people might not be able to attend your event because they can't get into the country. The budget for travel and accommodation has been reduced. So will you get your bums on seats? Will you get your normal numbers to your conference? Because budgets have been reduced. So people may not have the money to travel to your conference like they used to. So that could be a challenge for you, is getting your registration numbers because of reduced budgets. And we're also seeing here in Aotearoa a venue capacity and availability issue at the moment, as we are all looking to move our events into an in-person experience in some way, shape or form. So the hybrid event might be a great opportunity because venue capacity and availability is reduced. So have a real good brain dump of all of the challenges that you might face. These are going to be different for everybody, depending on the outcomes that you want to achieve with your event. So once you've identified your outcomes, your possible challenges, now you can start thinking about the solution that you're going to need for your event. However, this is still not the point where you're going looking for technology. This is not the phase where you are going out looking for the technology solutions. At this stage, you're still designing your event experience. Because the clearer you can be about the experience that you want to create, then the easier it's going to be to get the tech solution that will meet your needs. So here you are still creating the experience. And this is, before I said that if you have an in-person and a virtual component for your delegates or cohorts of delegates, then here in your solution, you are designing the experience for both of them. So what do you want each cohort to experience? How are you going to make them be seen and heard? How are they engaging with your event? Because in designing a solution, there is 3 things that you need to consider: content, connection, and community. Because it's my experience that business events, people make decisions to come to your events for these 3 reasons. They come because of the content. So your program provides value that extends their knowledge and gets them thinking. So is the content of your program geared towards both delegate cohorts? People come because of connection. They want to make connection with other people. So they want to create connections with people who will help them be better at what they do. So they probably want to make a connection with you as the event host. They want to make connections with the speakers because they're the experts on stage speaking on a topic that is of interest to them. They want to make connections with each other because they want some peer-to-peer relationships of people who either have experienced what they are having trouble with, or you can help each other. So people want to connect with one another. People also will attend your events because they want to be in community. They want to be in community with like-minded people. So accountants go to accountant conferences. Dentists go to dentist conferences. The accountant might go to the dentist conference if they work with dentists and that's who their client base is. But you get what I mean. Like-minded people want to attend in community with other like-minded people. So before they register to come to your event, they're going to make their decision on parting with their cash based on these 3 things. So formulate your design of your event. What elements will be in person? What elements will be virtual? How will you create the engagement that creates the connection between everyone who is participating? And then how are they connecting? While this all might sound super simple, it does take some really careful planning. And it's really not just putting the camera in the room and streaming it out and hoping for the best. So it can be easy when you think through all of those components that I've just covered, and you think through the experience. Like an in-person event, I think we've taken for granted way too much that morning tea is the time for connection, and people will do that themselves. So if we just put some tea and coffee in a room, people are going to go and make the connections that they want to make. And for many, many years, that's all as event organisers we've had to do. We haven't had to curate how they connect with one another. We haven't needed to give that any thought apart from how we're laying the room out and how they get their tea and get their tea and coffee and get there something to eat? And is there space for them to stand and chat and do all of those things? That's all we've had to do. Now that we see ourselves in this environment of virtual and hybrid, we have to think about that a lot more. We have to think about how we're curating those connections. What space are we providing so virtual and in-person delegates can connect with one another? And that all comes down to the solution that you're looking for when you're designing. Well, after you've designed how you're going to do it, then finding the technology that will enable what you want to achieve. The success of your event will come down to how effectively you can bridge the gap between the two delegate cohorts. A shared experience for all delegates, regardless of location, is what you ultimately want to achieve. So now that you've got the experience designed, you've got that all mapped out, you've got your technology, or you've got an idea of what your technology needs to encompass for you, you can now go looking for what technology you can engage with to achieve your desired outcomes. So technology is the vital tool, in my opinion, to bringing together both the in-person and the virtual event. So we need to bring both together using technology as a virtual event dashboard. Well, it's a centralized event dashboard, really. And we've been using an event app for many years. We were using it way before COVID came about. We were trying to transition our in-person events away from printed material. And we probably started that journey about 5 years ago, give or take. Probably could be longer. My memory is a bit sketchy on those kind of things. But you could, we were using an event app way before, and we were encouraging all of our clients to stop printing and killing multiple trees to produce a pretty handbook that would have no use after the fact. So more and more of our clients were using our event app. We were printing very little. I think all of 2019, probably even 2018, we printed nothing but a name badge. Everything else went into the event app. All of the questions, we stopped the microphone going around the room at an in-person event and put all of the question and answers, or all of the questions for the speakers to answer inside the app. This was game changer for our events. The cost difference, the amount of leftover booklets and paper stuff, we just reduced that back to zero pretty much. So then we just had to worry about name badges and lanyards and maybe recycling lanyards so we could use them over and over again. So we were looking at how sustainable our events could be. So hybrid events can be super sustainable when you have an event dashboard as your centralized tech tool. So now you're probably wondering, what is the cost of all of this? And again, my favorite answer is it depends, because it depends on how you put your event together, how you structure your event, what outcomes you're looking for, all of your cohorts evenly virtual and in person, what is the makeup of your event? So the cost of what your event, the cost of your hybrid event is really going to depend on a few things. But here's what I've put together, because this is my experience. I've also had a different experience to this as well, but here's how I see it. 100% virtual event is going to be your cheapest option. It's been our cheapest way to deliver an event in the last 12 months. Our in-person events fit about in the middle of this this cost structure. So in-person events sitting in the middle at the moment. And then a hybrid event. And again, I've put the hybrid event at the top as the most expensive option if we're basing it on the definition of a hybrid event in that cohorts of delegates are both in person and virtual. So your hybrid event is the most expensive event because you have got both a in-person event with venue and AV and catering and staffing, and you've got the cost of your virtual event, which is your event platform, your streaming software, and staff dedicated to your virtual event experience. So you've got both virtual and in-person experiences that are costing money that you have to bring together for your hybrid event. So that's going to be the most expensive event to put on. Could you generate more money by doing a hybrid event? I would say probably yes. In my experience, the 2 events that we did last year, we did one event. It was a 100-person in-person event, and we've done it for 100 people for the last probably 8 years. The moment that we switched it to a virtual event, we got 450 registrations. So can you get more money by doing a hybrid event? The answer to that is probably yes. So then you will have more money to put on your hybrid event. So it's not like you're going to have the same budget that you've always had for your in-person event, and then you have to find out where you're going to get the money for your hybrid experience. Your event may expand because of the virtual element you've added and the hybrid experience you're providing. We did a hybrid event which was a pivot of an in-person event. And actually, the way that we delivered it was in line with the example 2 that I showed you earlier, where we had all the speakers in studio and all of the delegates were virtual. That put our hybrid event cost actually in the middle of this. So for that particular client, our 100% virtual was the most cheapest option. Our hybrid event with all delegates virtual and speakers in person was our middle tier of pricing. And when we return to fully in person, that will be our most expensive, cost to deliver the event. So the hybrid and the in-person experience, they could differ. So they could be around the other way, depending on, again, how you structure your event. But for one thing I know for sure is that you will need a team of people for your in-person event, and you will need a team of people for your hybrid or for your virtual event experience. So in-person and virtual, you will need teams for both. The emergence of hybrid events as a viable and desirable event format opens up a world of creative opportunities for conferences and events, and an exciting new challenge for event organisers. But all of this, it starts with really good design. So if you get the design of your event down packed, and if you put all of your effort into designing your event, you will find that how that works out and how that manifests itself into your live event will be phenomenal, and you'll have phenomenal results. But without good design and good planning, it will be a struggle, and it will be hard, and it could end up by being not anything that you ever imagined it would be. So I do encourage you to put some consideration into your planning and your design of your virtual event before taking that big leap. All right, so that brings us to the end of our session today. That's not bad, 35 minutes in. I really do hope that you enjoyed this solo session, bit of a new thing for me, and me sharing what I've learned with hybrid events, what it means for us as event organisers moving forward, or even yourselves as event hosts. whether you have an in-house event coordinator or event manager, or whether you get external people like myself in to help you. The world of hybrid events just opens up a new opportunities for us to be creative, to get innovative, and to really put the delegate experience at the heart of everything that we do. I think it's easy to lose sight of the delegate experience while we get all consumed in the event itself and the topics that are being talked about, or the possibilities, or the good food, or all of the other things that go into making a really good event by design. All right, my friends, that brings us to the end of this session. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I would appreciate your feedback. Leave me a comment here. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any questions about hybrid event experiences, or how you're going about designing your hybrid event experience. And I will be back here in 2 weeks' time with another guest, where we will be diving into what goes on behind the scenes in the business events industry, what it takes behind the scenes to deliver a spectacular event that we participate in, and we really appreciate a good event when we experience it. So I'm really enjoying bringing these interviews to you. I've got some amazing guests lined up. And yeah, I look forward to having you back here in a couple of weeks. Until then, mā te wā.